Welcome to the Outdoors and Holistic Project, podcast edition with City Girl in Nature. My name is Quisia, and today I have a lovely guest called Kayla from Mother Nature's Recipes. So, hi Kayla.
Hi, Quisia. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, always.
Could you tell me a bit about Mother Nature's Recipes and what is that essentially?
Yeah, so the story behind Mother Nature's Recipes is basically I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy in 2014. And for me, when it came to motherhood, I kind of had all of these ideals of how it would be and what to expect, and I kind of assumed that I would know, my body would know how to do everything, and my ancestors have been giving birth for thousands of years in the most natural of climates, so what wouldn't I be able to do, you know? So I gave birth, had a natural birth and everything, but afterwards I found it really difficult to breastfeed, and I was really struggling. And I don't know if this was your experience when you had your son, but after a certain point, people go back to work, your partner has to go back to work, and I found it quite isolating. And it wasn't until the health visitor came to see me about a week or so after I gave birth to him that I realised he wasn't getting enough milk. And his mouth was too small because when he came through the birth canal, it had compressed his jaw, which meant he couldn't latch on properly to get enough milk. And that just set me off because I thought, how fascinating. And to know that there were things that I could have done, like I started to do some research and I found out later on that I could have gone to a chiropractor that specialised in birth. And I could have got his jaw realigned so that he was able to latch on. Or, I could have been expressing in that time to help myself. And I just started to think about all of the women going through a similar experience, or all of the mothers going through a similar experience, and not having access to the resources, whether it's information or products, that could help them have a better introduction to motherhood and the kind of ramifications of that, like falling into postpartum depression, just affecting that initial bond with baby, possibly. And so I wanted to try and find a way to support mothers in a multidimensional way. I mean, I was very fortunate. I was able to go on and breastfeed my son for 2 years because I did the research. I was able to express until he got a bit older, his mouth grew a bit bigger, and then I could continue that breastfeeding journey. But I know there's a lot of women that do get discouraged and the toll that can have. So I launched Mother Nature's Recipes in about October 2015, and what it initially started as was a service that provided kind of safe spaces for motherhood. And for me at the time, it was providing yoga classes, pregnancy yoga classes from a really beautiful home studio in Balham. At the home of a doula, actually. She was really lovely. And we were doing yoga classes and home spa treatments. So I was hiring therapists to go into women's homes and to provide them with massages, manicures, pedicures. And that was just all about facilitating that level of self-care from home, because we all know with a newborn, if you're breastfeeding, you can't be away from your baby that long, or you might not even want to if you're indulging in the first 40 days after giving birth and you're just in that space and you're just navigating that space. To have somebody come in and do that for you in a space where you feel safe and then leave, I think that was so important. So that's how it began for me. And then over time it transitioned into, so it started out as services, but I eventually transitioned it into a range of herbal teas back in 2020, because services wasn't really where my heart lied. And providing products and providing herbal teas just felt much more aligned with where I was at and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be able to serve those on the mothering journey. Sorry, that was a very long-winded introduction.
Wow, no, that was much needed though, and a
you.
lot of information in that.
Thank
and
you.
Some of the things you even mentioned just there, I do connect with. Even the 40 days, I had a home birth personally.
Okay.
So I had a home birth, and I stayed at home within those 40 days.
Yeah.
And as you said, I was fortunate that I have sisters that can do hair and stuff like that. So my sister, one of my sisters that was actually there at my birth too and caught my son, actually, she did my hair. And, you know, it makes a big difference, you know, when you just given birth, just that transition and all that's going on, just to like be able to look in the mirror and say, oh yeah, my hair looks good, or you know, like what you were saying about nails and stuff, just self-care, you know, it does add another level of, you know, helping that process and transition that as a woman you go through, which I guess is not spoken about as well, you know.
This is it. This is it. And it's a part of our history, you know. All of these kind of ancient cultural birth practices, we've become removed from them when we've moved into like westernized society. When you think about it on a tribal level, there's the Maasai tribe in Kenya. When a baby is born, the baby isn't seen as it's just the mother's baby. It's the whole tribe's baby. Everybody has a part in raising that baby. Like goat's meat or sheep's meat will be cooked, and the mother will be given that meat, and she'll be given fat and the blood from the animal to help her with lactation, to feed back into her, you know. The women from within the tribe will come to her home, they'll cook, they'll clean. She doesn't have to raise a finger. And this is something that has so intrinsically become lost in today's society, where it's like you give birth to a whole human being and then you just keep going. That mindset of you just kind of go back to how it was before, and you're supposed to get up and you're supposed to no, like you've just birthed a whole another human being from your body. Like you need to take the time to nurture that body and look after yourself and realize the importance of you, because your baby is so intrinsically linked to you. So if you're not good, how can baby be good? How can you give baby what they need if you're not looking after yourself and you're not being looked after by that village, by that community? You know?
So true, I think one of my things with breastfeeding specifically, when I first gave birth, I remember my mom, for some reason, when I first gave birth, I think I've heard other women say this, but I didn't have an appetite. Like I didn't feel like as hungry as I was feeling a few weeks before. And I guess my mom was saying to me, like, you need to eat, otherwise the baby's not gonna get good breast milk. And she kept like saying, if you're not eating well, the baby's not gonna eat well, and you're not giving him good milk. And I kind of like all of these kind of things that were being said, and it was, I did find that a bit challenging, you know, like because within my own body I was trying to understand what was happening, and the breastfeeding really did help actually with my stomach contracting back down, for instance. And I did notice that, and plus I did some like hot water on my stomach to help my stomach go down, and I did a few other things that helped in that process. But for anyone, once you give birth, it's quite, as you say, like that transition of just being a regular woman, I guess, or a young woman, or a girl even, and you know, then becoming a mother, like that whole transition is quite big.
It is very big
and life-changing.
Incredibly. And I feel like a lot of the time people think just because you've become a mother that you no longer need to be mothered, and that is such a key period where you do need to be mothered. And that's why a lot of the time in these in traditional birth practices, the woman would move in with the mother-in-law or her own mother, or the mum would come and stay with them and look after them, because you still need to be mothered within that period. And these things that your mum was telling you, all of that, all that passing down of the information, that you do need those 500 extra calories when you have one baby, 1,500 when you have twins, you know, and you need to be eating the right things, understanding what galactagogues are. Like, it sounds like a made up word. Galactagogues are food that can help you produce breast milk. So it's things like oats, brewer's yeast, pulses. There's so many different galactagogues, but it's just having that knowledge, because what your mum is saying is right.
No wonder my mum kept saying, just eat the oats at least, because my mum makes a nice oats, like, because she's Jamaican, so she makes oats in a different way, I guess. But she's like,
put all
just
the
have
spices in there.
Yeah, she's like, just at least have the oats. Then if
Yeah.
you can't eat properly, just have the oats. And I was
Yeah.
like, she's like, it's good for the breast milk.
It is.
And I'm like, all right, mom. But that makes sense now. Yeah, to know that that's actually one of the foods. In fact, that does help your milk supply.
It does. Yeah.
And I heard actually, there's a few other stuff that help.
There's
And
lots of different things.
is it it's completely going out of my head. It's like a supplement, but it's what's it called? Fenugreek.
Oh yeah, fenugreek is a
Yeah,
great one
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Fenugreek. There's lots of herbal remedies that can help as well. Vervaine's a galactagogue. Moringa traditionally is a herb that's used in the Caribbean to help produce breast milk. There's lots of them. Yeah.
So I know you said that you started off with services and then it transitioned into like more specifically herbs and teas and stuff. So I guess what type of herbs and teas benefit, mothers, or is it just mothers that you work with, or is it women generally?
So this is the thing. So I'm currently in the middle of a rebrand. So I am transitioning into catering more to the journey of womanhood. So I do plan to release a second range of teas alongside a herbalist later on in the year. But the teas I have currently, they're specifically for motherhood, because that's what I started out on. That was my personal experience, and that's what I wanted to cater to and will continue to cater to. But I just want to open up that scope a little bit more. So my teas, they serve 4 different stages of motherhood. So I have a pregnancy tea, a lactation tea, a colic and digestion tea, and a postpartum tea. So the pregnancy tea just focuses on it has ginger, which the ginger rolls in ginger are good for easing nausea, as we all know. That's a common use for that. We have lemon verbena, which is good for insomnia and anxiety. So, those late night trips to the toilet when you're pregnant, when that baby's pressing on your bladder as they get bigger and helping you to get back to sleep. Spearmint, which is great for digestion, and adds a nice natural bit of sweetness to the blends as well. And shatavari root, which is good for hormonal balance, but also just looks after the woman's reproductive system overall. So with all my teas, they've all been created alongside a herbalist to really, the ingredients, I've really thought about them to try and nurture different parts of the body and really hone in on that support, that self-care element. With the breastfeeding one, it has vervain in it, which is another galactagogue, but it's also a relaxant. And then we have fennel seeds in there as well, which helps you to produce breast milk, but also is good for aiding the natural defences in the body. And then moringa, because I wanted to add elements of, I'm Jamaican, both my parents were born in Jamaica, I was born over here. I wanted to add elements of my culture into it, so I've got herbs like moringa in the lactation blend, and I've got hibiscus, aka sorrel, in the postpartum blend as well. So I worked alongside a herbalist and took a long time developing these blends to make sure that I wasn't just throwing herbs in there for no good reason. They all have benefits that support the journey of motherhood. So
Wow, I love that it's really been thought about and it's intentional. And it also connects with like your own story, which I think is important too. I know personally as well, when I with my own work too, I like to share my experiences to try to help others in a way, because I feel like there's something special about when you've actually experienced it yourself, that more people connect with that, rather than like saying to someone, go over there, and you've never gone there. I think there's just something beautiful and special about that.
It is. I think it's just innate for us as human beings. We crave that connection with one another, and like you said, a big part of that is being able to connect with our individual experiences. I'm very much across the board, even when I'm buying products and stuff, I'm an emotional buyer, so I like to know the story behind the brand. I like to connect with it on that level, to see whether it's organic, to see whether I'm aligned with that brand. And I would want people to feel the same way as me, to know that there's a personal story there, and that will be reflected in the products and the services or whatever I create. because that passion is there and I genuinely care and I want to help. I want to help women. I want to help anybody who is a birthing body on their journey.
I guess there's loads of like misconceptions as well around pregnancy and breastfeeding, and even using herbs as a way to like aid this kind of transition that we're speaking about. So I guess, how did you manage to overcome what you explained in terms of with your son? And like you also mentioned, you went on to breastfeed for 2 years as well after that.
Yeah.
So how was that for you personally as well?
It was beautiful, you know, because when I was experiencing the difficulties, I was so stressed. I was so stressed because this organic experience that I expected to have from the beginning of when I was pregnant, I just thought naturally I never imagined having any issues breastfeeding. I always expected it to come quite natural to me, and the thought that could possibly be under threat was really upsetting for me, just for the bonding element, but also for me personally because of all the health benefits that are associated with breast milk, and I didn't want my son to go without that. That was a very personal journey for me. So yeah, I was elated when I was able to pump and then eventually go back to breastfeeding exclusively and just kind of secure that bond with him and have that time with him and know that I was able to achieve what I initially set out from before. And I think it helped me to kind of feel more secure in my role as a new mother as well, that I was able to overcome that obstacle and I felt a little bit more powerful going forward in my journey, that I would be able, the things that would come up and I would still be able to overcome them. So I think that was really important as well.
That's really important, I guess, you know, like speaking about, you know, we come across challenges and stuff and being able to overcome that.
Yeah.
I guess for 2 years as well. And I guess that's another element that I'd like to like explore as well,
sure.
Because I know I only breastfed my son up until he was 1. But I know for a lot of people as well, there's a lot of taboos around it as well, because before I trained to be a doula and I came to find out that the global average for breastfeeding is actually 4 years old, I was like, wow. So people around the world more so are actually breastfeeding right up until 4 years old, averagely. But here, a lot of the time, as you said, once a lot of women come across some of these challenges and stuff, it's quite difficult to even go past even a week or a month. I guess, like, how was that journey of, 2 years of breastfeeding?
I was quite lucky because you hear a lot of stories when it comes to breastfeeding about children like biting and stuff like that. So I never had any of those experiences. So I was just able to continue breastfeeding. But I completely resonate with what you're saying about the global average. And I just feel not necessarily that the support isn't there in this country, because there is, and there's a lot of people doing the work. There's a lot of charities out there supporting mothers that need to breastfeed, but I think on the level of like government, it's not necessarily there. I mean, there's still a lot of stigma and shaming around breastfeeding in public, which is absolutely crazy. I used to work with a colleague who was South African, and she was saying how she breastfed her kids until they were 6 years old, and nobody batted an eyelid because it's just normalized within their culture, within that country, and it's just not over here, and it's still something we really need to work on. So, but no, I got to 2 years, and I just thought this might be a nice time to stop. And then I missed a feed once, and then my son was just over it. He was just like, I don't need it anymore, and I was the one that was sad. He was fine. I was like, oh, you don't need me anymore, but. No, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I learned so much on that journey, because I had those initial struggles, and that really helped to inform the journey I went on when I had my daughter three and a half years later. Like just the confidence I had, the knowledge I had that I could support myself, even ended up kind of supporting friends who had babies, giving them recipes for like smoothies and stuff like that, and making them little snacks, making them teas and things like that. So yeah, it's really nice just to be able to support others based on my personal experiences. There's a magic in that, you know. Yeah.
Because you kind of like lived it, and
Yeah.
I think another little phrase my mum kind of says is those that feel it know, or something like that. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For you, what specifically were some of the herbs that you found really helpful?
So when I was trying to breastfeed, it's a lot of the herbs that I use in my blends actually. I was drinking a lot of moringa tea. Like I said, in Caribbean culture, we drink a lot of moringa tea, and it's kind of like old wives' tale that it's known as a galactagogue that can help you with breastfeeding, but not officially. But I was drinking a lot of moringa. I was adding vervain to a lot of my teas as well, but in small portions. Vervain is very bitter, so I like to add it in with like spearmint and stuff like that. But a lot of relaxing herbs as well, but just like the basic ones like chamomile, you know, that can help with intestinal spasms and stuff, but it's a relaxant as well. But it's also good for building up your immune system, supporting the natural defenses of the body. So nothing overly kind of adventurous, and I kind of started with the basics and then started to build and explore a little bit more. But for me, after having my son, that completely changed everything in terms of the way I wanted to be able to support my family and to be able to support him, and herbs became a big part of that. Like even through colds and general sickness, like I wasn't looking, and no judgment for people who do, but I was looking to herbal remedies because for me it just made sense. Like I'm going to nurture my body with stuff that comes from the ground, that comes from the earth, that we cultivate, you know. It just makes it, that's just so powerful to me, to be able to go and pick up something out of the ground and make it into something that can heal your body or heal my son's body. So he was a big catalyst of that, and in terms of just changing our lifestyle overall. So like I would, when they were sick, I would like make elderberry syrup and go to salt caves and stuff, and just make ginger tea and add like turmeric root in there, and just doing research and watching videos of different herbalists and just finding what worked for them. And they have a cough, like using Maline, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, and just kind of growing my knowledge that way and learning from them, seeing if it worked on them, and then tweaking it and changing it and stuff like that. So
there was definitely an element of like trial and error and what suits different people. Because I know they do say like different pregnancies, different women, different people, you know, it affects people, herbs, or you know, like affects people differently, just like I guess medication or anything really affects different people differently. So I guess exploring that side of it as well must have been a journey also.
Yeah, very much so. But I think that's the way it should be. If you're going to implement like herbal remedies and stuff into your life, it has to be a lifestyle choice. It can't, to really receive the benefits, it can't be something you just do for like a day or so or a week. You need to build that up in your system, you know. So I think that's the mental approach you need to take to it, because all of these things I've kind of cultivated over time and kind of introduced them into our lifestyle over time, so that hopefully when my kids grow older, it will just come natural to them. And like my biggest dream eventually is to live out somewhere where I can live off of the land and grow things in my back garden, because my mum is she is a massive green fingers, and in her garden, like in the summertime, she'll have pumpkins, she'll have aubergines, she'll have her herbs and tomatoes, and I've grown up seeing that, you know. And before I never used to pay no attention to it, but as I've gotten older, had my own kids, I've just realised how beautiful that is, to have that and have access to that, and even my kids, when they go around there, they help her water the garden and they pick stuff for her. And I love that. Just the idea of being able to go out into the garden and pick some herbs for dinner, or pick something that I can bring inside and cook. That's like my dream. So I really want my children to grow up in that and understand that they can nurture themselves and heal themselves with the things that grow out of the land, you know, and that they just understand what to use and how to use it, and explore that and use that knowledge and pass it forward, hopefully, you know.
It sounds like also that contributed a lot to why you made Mother Nature's recipes the name of what you do. I don't know, was that the reason as well why
Pretty
you kind of
it's just like the recipes to life are in Mother Nature, you know. The recipes to healing ourselves on a mental and a physical level derive from Mother Nature, and we should all be kind of exploring that a little bit more, if and when we can.
So when you did kind of go through the trial and error kind of process, was there any like adverse or like extreme experiences you faced by trying different herbs that you were like surprised or taken by?
I didn't have any experiences. I didn't experience any contraindications, but as you said before, we're all individuals. Everything affects us differently, so you have to find what works for you. Again, it is a trial and error process for all of us. And I always say, like on the packaging and everything else, that you can speak to a physician before. It's recommended that you speak to a physician before trying any new products. But when working alongside the herbalist, I made sure that all of the herbs used would be safe throughout the various stages, obviously, of pregnancy through to postpartum. But you never know what's going to affect you, you know? So it's always good to try things in small batches and then go from there and just explore a little bit more. But I didn't have any issues when I was making the teas either, no.
Okay, it's good to hear. But yeah, you've mentioned also that, you know, you work alongside a herbalist. So how did that come about, and how does that also, I guess, contribute to your blends and stuff? Because I know a lot of people are interested in herbs and stuff, but there's not necessarily the research or expertise behind it. So
this is a problem that I find, because I feel like we're of the generation, whenever we want to know something, we just go to Google. And a lot of the time when it comes to herbs and herbal remedies, Google will just tell you to stay away rather than giving you the reasons why or anything, because of a lack of research. But what I would say is, if you are doing any research around any herbs, what you want to do is Google a monograph of that herb, and that will give you all the medicinal properties. Sometimes it even gives you like the spiritual properties as well, and it will just break it down for you. So that's a better way to do it than going to Google. But in terms of working alongside a herbalist, obviously when I was starting out, I'm not an expert now. I'm just a fond lover of herbs and herbalism. I did some studying online, but nothing in comparison to what a herbalist has done, studying for years at this, you know. So a good friend of mine, who is actually a qualified herbalist now, Sherelle Douglas, she recommended a herbalist to me. Her name's Louise Sam. She currently lives in Barbados. And I met her. And do you know what, Quessia? For me, in building this brand and connecting with people, I very much go off of intuition and the vibe I get off of people. If I connect with you, then I can work with you. But if I don't, if my energy just doesn't vibe with you, then I probably won't, because that's very important to me, that all of the connections and relationships I build are very organic, and that we are aligned in that sense, that they know what I'm trying to build, and that they have a respect for their own work and their craft in the same way. So I met with Louise, and we just instantly hit it off, and she really respected what I was trying to do, and I could see how passionate she was about her work and her craft and so forth, and helping me on my journey. So we just started working together. I had like lists and lists of herbs and suggestions and stuff like that, and she would come back with, you know, all the side effects, the contraindications, what her recommendations were, and then we just went from there. And then I would get different people to taste them. I did some tea taster training with a lovely woman called Joyce Maynor of the Cambridge Tea Consultancy. And I got her to try some of my blends as well, and got her advice and so forth. So for me, it's always about being intentional, but working with the right people and making the right connections on this journey. I mean, I've been doing this, like I said, I launched the business in 2015, and I'm rebranding now in 2024. And it's been a slow process, but I'm okay with that, because I know I'm where I'm supposed to be, and it's going to keep growing like that. And yeah.
That's still, that sounded a bit like you were saying, like, I've done this for long, but I haven't really seen. But what I heard in that was like, wow, you've got so much experience. 2015, you know, like, that's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Even though, like, you know, you're just rebranding now. There's so much that's happened in this space of time. Even us just speaking now, I can hear, like, you know, it's been a journey, and with everything, you know, there's a journey that comes along with what we do. So you do the amazing job.
Thank you. That's one of the things I feel like as human beings, or maybe it's not, maybe it's just me. We don't often take the time to sit back and take stock of what actually has gone on and what we put into things, and because we're always on to the next thing, rather than just being slow and being present and being like, oh wow, like you said, I have done X, Y, and Z. Like, that's a big deal.
No, it is a big deal.
Thank you.
Because you've been on your own personal journey, but you've also brought this into, like, also trying to share with others, which is big as well, because not only was you experiencing it, but you also were sharing it with others. So it is a big deal.
Thank you.
It is a big deal.
Thanks.
I guess my next question is, so teas and the herbal teas and blends that you've kind of mentioned as well, can, like, dads have a sneaky cuppa?
Of course they can. Of course they can. My brother is a lover of the tummy ease tea. He loves it for the bloatedness and the trap wind and everything, and the relaxation. He loves that blend. So yeah, dads can have a cuppa as well.
I know some of the herbal teas you did use yourself during pregnancy. Pregnancy, am I right to say?
Yeah, pregnancy.
Yeah, because you said about the moringa. And postpartum. But once you stopped breastfeeding, did you still continue on your, like, herbal tea?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Like I was saying before, it just became part of the lifestyle. It became, I drink herbal teas for enjoyment, but I also drink herbal teas and give my family herbal teas just for kind of everyday nurturing, you know, especially throughout the winter months. Definitely. We're always drinking a herbal tea in the morning before school, because, you know, school, they pick up every germ in the school and bring it home. So I need to be building up their immune system throughout the winter months. But no, definitely, I drink herbal tea every day, usually with some sea moss in there as well. Usually nothing too fancy, just a simple ginger tea. But I go to the market to get my ginger, and I might have a mint tea as well. I just quite like mint. It's just so refreshing. It's good for digestion, all the benefits. But yeah, it's very much a part of our lifestyle now, and just a way to constantly try and build up our immune system throughout the year for us. Yeah.
Is there a way to kind of get the best out of the herbs as well? So say I use the herbal blend once, could I, like, reuse it, or
it depends on how long you brew it for.
Okay.
So each herb has, see, this is the thing, because you've got herbs and you've got tea. So when you're talking about tea comes from the Camellia sinensis plant. So when you hear, like, black tea, white tea, green tea, that's all the same plant, but it's just processed in different ways to give you those different versions.
Okay.
So when we're talking about herbs, all of these things have different kind of brewing times, processing times. So in terms of my herbs, a lot of the time, if you've brewed them for under 5 minutes, you can reuse the tea bag, because what we're trying to do is, within the rebrand, I'm going to be providing tea bags as well as loose leaf versions of the two bestsellers, the Tummy Ease and Postnatal Boost. But we're trying to incorporate whole leaf ingredients into the tea bags and the loose leaf blends, which gives you kind of optimum quality, gives you higher quality, more of the benefits as well, because they're not cut down as much. So a lot of the time you should be able to reuse herbal teas. It's just how long you've brewed it for. So yeah, you can.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. So, because I know that sometimes like just using it once and then getting rid of it, I guess was like, how can I get the best out of these herbs kind of thing.
No, as long as you brewed it for a certain amount of time and then you strain it, you should be able to reuse them again. But just be careful, because some teas, they do release tannins, which can make the teas very bitter. So that usually means when a tea is very bitter, that you've overbrewed it. Not all herbs have tannins. I believe some herbs have tannins, but it's more common in tea variations. So you don't want to overbrew your ingredients as well, because a lot of the time you can be killing, kind of denaturing the benefits. And some herbs, for example, marshmallow root, you're not supposed to have it hot, because it completely eradicates the benefits. So I have marshmallow root in 2 of my blends, and I use it to support digestion. And so I recommend on the back of our boxes that you brew this tea in warm water rather than hot water, so you still receive those benefits. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
interesting
it's always,
to know as well.
Yeah, it's important to check these things, how it's supposed to be brewed, and the conditions for that, the water temperature, all of those things. Yeah.
I know earlier as well you mentioned about the Maasai tribe and some of the practices they do to give back to their body. I noticed you did something that that after birth, which I guess there's taboos and stuff around.
Oh yeah.
So, what was that?
I did placenta encapsulation after I gave birth to my daughter. I had a home birth with my daughter, and my partner when I had my son, my partner at the time, husband now, he was like, "Why don't you do placenta encapsulation?" I was like, "No way am I eating my placenta." And I think as I just grew in kind of knowledge and confidence and did more research, I was like, why wouldn't I? It's full of so much goodness that's come from your own body. Why wouldn't you want to? So yeah, I started telling everybody I'm going to get my placenta encapsulated. Family and friends were horrified. They were like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? But I will shout about placenta encapsulation from the rooftops. It's eventually a service that I would like to do the training for and offer, because the difference between my recovery after my first pregnancy to my second is completely different. Like, I just felt like I had so much energy. I felt as though I recovered so much quicker. I felt stronger. I could really sense the benefits. And, you know, people might just say that, but it wasn't like a placebo effect or anything. I felt good within my body. And that kind of just supported me getting back to the things that were important, which was bonding with my babies and, you know, nurturing that relationship. So, yeah, I highly recommend placenta encapsulation. Yeah.
Because I did a lotus birth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had a home birth. And
Yeah.
even for me too, just the fact that even when I was on the phone to the paramedics, so I had a birth before arrival, as they explain it. And so I had to speak to the paramedics on the phone. And I had told my family and everyone, I come from a really big family as well.
Yeah.
And I was the first to do something like this. So I'm explaining to them, I'm going to keep the placenta attached to the baby. And they're like,
That's
what?
right.
And they're confused. And then even when we was on the phone, they all knew that. So we was on the phone to the paramedics. And they kept saying, I think they work with a script, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So they kept saying, have you cut the cord? Yeah. And then we got to the point where we just said, yeah, we've cut the cord. Yeah, we've cut it. And then they said the next steps or whatever. They said, okay, yeah, we're gonna have someone's gonna come and stuff. And then because I had already birthed the placenta as well, which I guess also that in itself, a lot of people haven't really necessarily experienced in the same way that I did with the lotus birth, because obviously the baby and the placenta was still attached. I've heard that a lot of people, they birth the baby, then once the baby's been cut from the cord, they then birth the placenta, or in natural birth scenarios, which I found interesting because I didn't know that was the other process or what most people experience. So when I'm explaining to people and even showing them pictures, you know, they're like, what really?
What are you doing?
And then I'm like, yeah, it naturally will fall off. And then they're like, really? I've never heard of this before. And I use herbs as well to dry out the placenta. So I use like Himalayan salt and thyme and rosemary and rose petals, and these herbs, you know, dried the placenta out, and it fell off within 5 days. And he has a normal belly button as any other child. And I guess this was something that had never been heard of as well. So people were like, really, isn't it gonna smell, you know, like why would you want to keep that? And
but this is my whole thing, you know, it's like when the knowledge isn't there, when the understanding isn't there, because this is something we've been doing, this isn't a new thing. And it's just another thing that needs to be spoken about a lot more. There's people that bury their placentas, they plant it in their gardens, you know. All of these practices need to be normalized, because what you chose to do benefited your baby, and that's your personal choice, and you're entitled to that. And these conversations need to be had more openly and more freely.
Definitely. For me as well, I think I saw the benefits too. For me, I definitely felt like that transition from my son, even from the world to the womb, from the womb to the world, you know, it was much smoother, because imagine you've been living with like an organ that's been supporting you for like 10 months, and then that organ's just like removed from you. I guess that in itself can cause a trauma maybe to like some of these babies. And
no, I agree.
So what is the wisest kind of tip or kind of experience that you can share with our listeners?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Around motherhood and around physical and mental well-being, to make it a bit more easier.
Okay, so I think the tip I'm going to give is incredibly, it can be very difficult at times, but it needs to become essential. So just to slow down and be present, especially, I'm talking from pregnancy to postpartum. I think we've become so stuck in this idea that we have to be able to multitask and do so much, and it doesn't serve us, because a lot of the time we get caught up in the chaos of our own lives, and we think in order to be validated, our own self-worth to be validated, it needs to be measured by what we're doing, and that rolls over into the role of parenthood. That takes precedent in womanhood and our own self-value and self-worth, and that's something we need to stop. So when it comes to motherhood, I would say just being present, because I don't know about anybody else, but that is the most difficult thing I find to do, just to genuinely switch off from everything, because I might switch off from one thing, like physically, but my mind is still racing. And I think it's a process. It's a lot of undoing. in terms of our attitudes towards work and living and what's expected of us. And we need to be intentional in that. Now, I'm saying all of this. At the same time, I understand that we don't necessarily have the time to facilitate that. But when I'm saying being intentional, it's something that whilst we're aware of it, we have to make time for it. And you can start small. It can be 5 minutes a day and build from there. Because just like in my interactions with my kids, their behaviour is completely different when I'm not present, you know, because they're craving that. And then I'm aware of the fact that I'm not being present with them. And it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. And I don't want that for my relationship with my children going forward. So I'm waffling a bit on a tangent now. No. But the tip I would get is just to slow down and be present, because when you have that baby, you being relaxed as much as possible is everything that folds over into mental health, that folds over into being able to breastfeed. Because remember, all of those hormones, that oxytocin, it's a love hormone. The hormone that you need to have that let down reflex, to have that milk come forth, you need to be in that relaxed, loving state for that to be flowing. You know, you need that skin to skin, you need that contact, you need that connection. So you need to be present, and you need to feel safe, and you need to feel secure. So I think that would be my one tip, just to slow down, be present, and just try and look after yourselves, and don't be afraid to ask for the help too. That's another thing. We feel we want to do multitask and do everything ourselves, but we have to get more comfortable with asking for help because it's necessary, you know.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I feel that we do need to try and be more present, and you know, I guess also naturally, you know, as women too, our minds do wander off and try and do so many things at once. So that is a really, really good tip, to just be present and slow down. Slow down.
Nothing's going to happen if we slow down. It's like we've got that in our heads that we can't slow down because this needs to be done. Nothing's going to happen. The world's going to keep turning.
And where can people find out about your work and what you do?
Well, I'm on Instagram, just at Mother Nature's Recipes. I have a YouTube channel as well. And then I've got the website, which is mothernaturesrecipes.com or .co.uk. And you can find me there, and you can always drop me a DM if you're looking for a specific service. Like, I used to have a directory on my old website. I'm building a new website at the moment, so it will be up on the new one. If you're looking for... If you need any support, if you need any help, if you need a service recommended, you can always reach out to me via email or DM me. I'm always happy to try and help or connect you with somebody that can help. So, yeah.
Wow, thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.